for the week. It is Tuesday, some time at the 1st of February of 2021. Which one of these is working here? Anyway, doing a bit of a general chat. Last chat I did was basically hovering around EVs, you know, where EVs are going, and mainly in the more into the context of, you know, the future of muscle. And it was funny, like muscle cars, muscle trucks, you know, just, you know, big butch pickup trucks, things like that. And the last chat was basically hovered around that. Basically, what is the future if, you know, all these manufacturers are switching over to electric stuff? John Jones is in. Michael Corleone is in. Boosted Himmy, what's up, man? So basically, that was kind of an interesting chat. So what is up with this camera? I am not looking in focus. Oh, there I am. That looks a lot better. Okay. So anyway, fact of the matter is that we're going to circle back around and chat about that. Probably on Saturday, though. That chat is going to be more or less future of internal combustion engines, some of the technologies that are out, some alternative fuel sources, and basically the direction that the internal combustion engine is going to have to go to stay relevant coming into the next 30, 40, 50 years. At some point, it's going to be outside of my lifetime, but we're going to be pretty much in an all-electric with some gasoline-powered contraption. So anyway, we'll be talking about that on the next one. For this chat, pretty much just a general chat. Want to leave this open for you guys. Most of the time I'll open these up. I'll have some monologue yammering on about who knows what. But in this case, I wanted to leave it a little bit open, kind of freestyle this one a little bit. If you got questions about, could be anything from tuning, camshafts, engine stuff, you name it, the floor is all yours. So I'm going to turn it over to y'all this time. I think it'd be kind of fun to switch it up a little bit. In the meantime, let's see. Boosted Timmy, let's see. Richie's checking in saying, howdy, B. What's up, howdy? What's up, howdy? What's up, Richie? Let's see. Let me get this squared away here. Alex is saying, Professor B, what do you think of mild hybridization in the Challenger? Will it basically be e-torque or something else? I don't know yet. I think it would be pretty cool if they can get it sorted out sooner than later, though. I'd like to see that platform at least evolve into something, and e-torque is certainly on the table. I think that's kind of a neat way to go. It could be anything, though. It could be electric motors aft of the transmission. It could be electric motors built into a modified or just a new transmission system in general. But all of these things have been done in the past, and they are stopgap measures. And you got to be honest with this. This is transitional technology. And I bring up the Camaro again. I offer to you example 1A that I always seem to bring up. Transitional technology, though, and really the C4 Corvette is a real good example of that, where you've got things that you know and love, like tire pressure monitoring, that basically is, you know, the size of a bottle cap, more or less, that's in your rim. That C4 Corvette, the tire pressure monitors were about as big as this little Bose speaker here. So anyway, I believe that most of that is more or less transitional. Again, you know, we'll see how it fares, but to keep the platform alive and before that type of a platform goes all electric, I think it would be pretty cool to augment or supplement those engines with something along those lines. Good question. Clutch is saying, evening, B. What's up, Clutch? PBR is checking in saying, hello from Charleston, South Carolina. Got the arm flex. I like it. Although you can't see the arms because I'm wearing this because it's kind of chilly. Sam Grebel saying, what up, B? What up, Sam? Alex is saying, also, how would you compare and contrast how the SRT 392 and the Hellcat feel to drive? Man, I tell you what, good question. So let me jump in the middle of it. The 392... how can I explain this properly? Because I've got Hellcat guys who are going to start to come unwired here. But long story short, the 392 is punchier than the Hellcat is. And I'll even take that a step farther. I offer to you example 1A, once again, the Camaro TBI 305. This car makes a ton of tip-in torque. A lot of that has to do with how the throttle linkage works and everything else. But the fact of the matter is underfoot, this car is incredibly torquey. kind of like the 392. It's got a real instant hit. It's real snappy. It's real lively, and it should be. It's basically 392 cubic inches of more or less 11-to-1 compression ratio. Whereas the Hellcat is a smaller engine. A lot of people forget about that, which is kind of interesting, but the Hellcat is a smaller engine. But the other twist that they forget about is that the Hellcat has a significantly lower compression ratio, about 9.5-to-1. And the reason why that's significant is because when that engine is not under boost, the turd. In fact, the 5.7, just the way that it sits, would not be too far off the mark in terms of horsepower versus a non-supercharged 6.2 liter out of a Hellcat. In other words, if you're to take the intake manifold off of a 6.4 and throw it on a Hellcat engine and just drive it naturally aspirated, throw the tune parameters of, well, you'd actually have to throw a lot of timing at it to really get any spunk out of it. But long and short of it, 392 is punchier to drive. Now, there does come a time, and again, this is underfoot, there does come a time at about half throttle where things start to turn into the Hellcat's favor. And really at about 3/4 throttle, that's when the Hellcat wakes up. But before that, it's a little bit lumbering and it's a little on the lazy side. But that's not to say that it's, well, it is to say it feels a little bit softer. I'll put it in other words. With a Scat Pack, let's say you got a Scat Pack shaker. That thing feels about like it's got somewhere around 500 horsepower. The Hellcat, by comparison, especially if we're talking about a stock geared Hellcat, is going to feel, by comparison, like it has about 570, maybe 600 horsepower. It doesn't really feel, if there's a right word to how to describe that, it doesn't have the feeling of 700 horsepower. And it's been my biggest, I don't know if you want to call it criticism, but observation, and probably I should say the most controversial observation that I've had with the Hellcat. It just, to me, never felt like it had 700 horsepower. Well, now, once you put a 309 gear in it, and once you kind of tickle the ivories a little bit, you know, that going to change your mind a little bit. But until that point, the 392's got it. But I can even take it a step further. The 392 is arguably a more balanced package. In fact, arguably is kind of a soft way of putting that about 80% of people that have driven both the 392 and the Hellcat, although they love the Hellcat, there's always that lust for that, you know, juicy Hellcat power. A lot of them like the 392s for dailies and just playing around because you can use all the power. See, the downside to the Hellcat is even on a drag radial and even with the stock gears and even with stock tunes and everything else, they will incinerate a set of tires, and that gets, although it sounds fun, I'm not going to say that it's not in small doses, it gets real annoying. Whereas the 392, you just roll into the throttle, it'll haze the tires pretty much whenever you want, boil the tires at will, but the reality is that on a regular old-fashioned drag radial, you can actually get the thing to hook up, and it will be basically, I don't know, a better value per dollar if you're actually talking about usable power on the street from a dig. Now, from a roll, it's a different story, but it might not be as different as you might think. So hopefully that answers your question, A-B comparison there. I own and have owned both, and I gotta tell you, there are times where I do miss the 392 just because it was so snappy and just so punchy. It just always felt like it wanted to play. Whereas the Hellcat, it's kind of like a little bit of a lumbering bear in a way. I mean, it'll play, but I mean, when it plays, it kind of hurts, if that makes any sense. Anyway, Sam's asking, what's a good sounding cam for a Dodge van with a 5.9? Well, anything that's got a lobe separation angle of around 112 degrees, 220 degrees of intake, and 28 degrees of exhaust duration sound pretty good. Jean-Paul saying, hey, Brian, are 2618 pistons any good for Gen 3 Hemis? I'm stroking a 5.7 to 6 liters. Molnar crankshaft rods, any good? Your opinion is greatly appreciated. I'm not sure which, I don't know about all the numbers as far as 2618. I'm guessing that if those are the Molnar pistons, then they're freaking awesome. Eagle makes a good set of pistons too. It's actually kind of hard to find a bad set, to be honest, at this stage of the game. I'll be real honest with you. If it's got a name brand associated with it, I'd say go for it. Eagle makes a good set of pistons, and you really can't go wrong with those. So I'd probably look at those first, but only because I've been around a while, and that's just kind of a default piston. And some will argue with me on that, I know, but man, look, manufacturing processes nowadays, I don't know. Motor can't really beat that one though. Clutch 392 is asking realistic horsepower numbers for intake and headers and heads and intake manifold and throttle body, exhaust and 85 and tuned stock cam. Not at that point. I've heard multiple people saying 392s can get up to 500 wheel horsepower on a stock cam. Depends on what kind of dyno you're talking about. It's not that far off on a very, and I mean very optimistic dyno jet, but you're just really not going to get there from here. I mean, 480 would really be about the top of what you would probably see. Most cammed 392s, a properly cammed 392 will make anywhere from 490 to 505-ish horsepower on a dyno jet, like a 248C, an inertia style dyno. So if you're asking realistic horsepower numbers for intake, you might get 10. Headers, you don't get any horsepower out of headers. You really only get torque. And that's a big misconception, and don't let anybody fool you on that. I've done so many tests on headers at this stage of the game that on 392s that I mean, I can rattle off the top of my head from a 3,000 RPM hit on a Mustang dyno. You're going to pick up about maybe 6 or 8 pound-feet of torque right up until about 3,900 RPM. And then that gain is going to diminish. And then at the very top of the pull, you're actually going to lose a little bit. So, and that's just a function of how the headers work with that stock cam. If you got an aftermarket cam, that kind of throws that whole thing off. But you do get partial throttle power that you just really can't measure on a dyno. It's the butt dyno takes over at that point, and your tip-in throttle response. In other words, the abruptness of just the way that the throttle is going to react underfoot picks up with those headers. So don't worry about what headers get you in terms of outright horsepower, because if you're looking for that, you're going to be very disappointed. And by the way, those header gain numbers are always with a tune. The tune is what's getting you the most power out of that. Heads, don't bother with that. Your heads already flow a bunch. Intake manifold and throttle body, I've picked up as much as 13 horsepower on a really jacked up intake. For the most part, 6-ish, 8-ish is not outside of possibility, but I've seen them as little as 3 and I've seen them as much as 13. So it just depends on the shape of the intake. The big thing about intake though is that you are blueprinting the parts that are on the engine. Don't think of it as porting, because you have to remember the intake runner is like as long as this roll of paper towels here, and you can really only get into about this far because of the way that it curves. And I apologize, I don't have a better prop than that, but you're actually just basically straightening out and taking out any intrusions that are in that intake leading to the head itself. So, but I have picked up power with them for sure. The big pickup there though is going to be on the throat of that intake if it's a 392. Exhaust, I don't bother with it. E85 will pick up torque. Don't look for it to pick up horsepower. Not unless you're running one of the Sniper intakes or the Edelbrock, or not the Edelbrock a little bit too, but the Holly. Tune with the stock cam, I've seen as little as, mine went from 405 or 410, I forget what it was, to 425. But here's the thing, the horsepower numbers with Mopars doesn't really equate. I'll give you a really good example of this. My car went from running, this is kind of in crappy conditions too, but my car went from running, 11.8s, 11.7s to 11.50s and 11.40s in really good air. Actually, I'll take it back. When did I do that? Yeah, 11.80s to 11.40s. That was in good air with just the tune, and that was with it only picking up like 10-ish horsepower, give or take. So the gains really outweigh what the dyno will show with these cars. The big difference is in transmission tuning, and I was actually able to pick up really more ET with transmission tuning than I was with engine tuning. So there you go. Hopefully that answers the question. John Paul is saying, my question was for a boost application. Either way, I mean, if you're going to go, high, it could have been high compression, naturally aspirated. Either way, you'll be in good shape. Let's see. Sam saying, I'm thinking of building a Ram van as an ultimate sleeper. Hopefully I'll find a 5.9, maybe a cam and a Pro Charger. I'd hit it with nitrous, man. I mean, you got enough room back there. There's not a lot of room to route things in the engine compartment of a van, although you could go with like an E-Force. That'd be pretty sweet. Alex is saying, interesting. I wouldn't have expected that. If I wanted more power, would I retain the punchiness of the 392 if I went NA stroker, cam, and full bolt-ons? Such is the argument. So here's the problem with that. Stem papers, man. So the problem is, to retain the punchiness, if you want to keep it NA, you can always go stroker, which is a little bit on the fence with the stroker kits. Yeah, you can pick up some power, but you're picking up power primarily because you're running a different intake, you're running a different cam. There's a lot of other things that are in play when you start running strokers, along with the compression ratio bump that you might go with, like 11.5 to 1, maybe 12 to 1. And, just the added displacement just in general. So what I've noticed, and see, here's the problem. This is when you start talking about cubic dollars, not just cubic inches. When you throw all that money at a 392, and we're talking about the stroker kit now, you could take your 392 powered car along with the money that you were planning on sinking into it, buy yourself a Hellcat, and have a car that will be faster than what your stroker motor car would have been, bone stock in most cases, with an upside that'll take you to whatever ET number that you really want to go to. You get stupid fast with the Hellcat. Now, there are diehard, and when I say diehard, I mean it in the most tragic sense of the word in this case, but there are diehard folks that will just say, nope, got to go stroker, want it to be naturally aspirated. Okay, cool. My garden variety recipe for NA hot rodding would be 426. I just really wouldn't go 440. 426 is fine. I would, to keep it on the street, just go with either the Victor intake or go with the stock intake, good port job with 84, 85 millimeter throttle body. You're not going to get away with much more with a stock intake manifold there. You could probably go with the Hellcat throttle body on the Edelbrock, make a little bit more power. But again, there's the added expense, and it's kind of a pain in the ass, and you've already got a fairly decent intake manifold there anyway. The cam that I would spec and that I have spec'd for 426s, I've spec'd probably half a dozen different grinds for probably close to 30 different 426s. And they've ranged the gambit from anywhere from fairly mild, like a 228, 232 type of a grind, more or less a street grind, just real torquey, all the way up to, one was smaller than that. It was a 224, 234. That was it's a NAG 1 car. That one did pretty good. You've also got, some other cams that I've done that have gone up as high as 236, 242. So it just kind of depends on what you're looking for the car to do. But those are kind of the street application type of cam profiles that I would look at for a 426. The rest of it's going to be basically fairly typical. I mean, you're going to run the thing with a set of long tube headers, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And what I mean by et cetera, it's, this is when my interest in a stroker really starts to go away, because I look at it and I think, damn, you're going to sink all that money into a 392, and that may or may not raise the value, and it's only cool until somebody shows up with a Hellcat. and they proceed to do Hellcat things, and you're basically kind of running door handle to door handle. Now, that being said, a lot of the guys that run 426s, believe it or not, aren't drag race guys. This is the funny thing about it. Most of the guys that run 426s don't really take their cars to the track, and most of them are doing really good to run in the 1070, 1060 range, by the way, that do. So it sounds fast. You go, well, a stock Hellcat runs 11.0s. Yeah, sort of. Stock Hellcat will run 11 or 1080s. And you can always get more for the Hellcat. So it depends on your level of commitment to naturally aspirated. I can only tell you that. If you want to, and here's the other thing, if you want to retain the punchiness of the 392, I would say leave it a 392. That's your best bet. Put a cam in it that's just a good, solid cam, much like Quick Bricks cam, the one that I put together, that sniper grind. It's my own personal grind. It's one I actually ground for Shalandra. Real punchy. The car damn near runs 10s, and it's freaking 4,600 pounds. I can't remember if I posted the picture up or not. I don't even know. The picture was taken with my camera, I think. I was driving, but it might have been because I was just asked to get pictures of Rob's car. Anyway, that thing will damn near lift the tires off the ground, and it's 4,600 pounds, and it'll run 1130s in really good air. So ran its best of 1129. Did I mention it was 4,600 pounds? Drivability all over the place, and it doesn't have a lope to it. That's the only thing that gets underneath some people's skin is that, well, it's got a cam, but it doesn't have a lope, and it didn't pick up a ton of power. Yeah, that's really not the point, because see, the problem with picking up horsepower is that you will invariably give up torque, and it's where the torque is what you need to get one of those barges to move out of its own way. So anyway, just a kind of a friendly bit of advice. If you're thinking about going stroker, I wouldn't do it. And I would save that money for either getting a Hellcat. You can tune it, you can make it kind of snappy. It's just not ever going to be as punchy as a 392. Put a mild cam in it, throw some exhaust on it, metal substrate catalytic converters. It'll be a great sounding car. It'll run fantastic. It'll do all kinds of neat things, and it'll still retain the punchiness, but it'll still retain the class too. And that's one of the things I always liked about the 392 is it's always like a, fast with class type of thing. Moto X saying my Scat has great tip and torque. Just wish the power band carried through 6,300 RPM. Yeah, I hear that. ET Racing's asking, Brian, what is your opinion on a 2001 to 2004 Ford Mustang GT 5-speed? I used to use those as work vehicles. When I was a younger Cub TM, I used those as my runabouts to run all over the city of Houston. And I loved them because they were freaking bomb-proof. They were punchy. They were fun to drive. And, basically, I'd get a new one about every other year. Absolutely love those cars. The only downside to them, watch out for the intake manifold. If you decide to pick one up, I would say a new intake manifold may be soon in your future at this, just the timeline itself. But no, they're great cars. I love them. Clutch is saying the 392 feels the most punchy after 4,000 RPM. Actually, man, they're punchy off idle. Sam's saying maybe I'll find a Dodge van 9602. I'll either keep it 5.9 or try to shoehorn a 392 in it. Could. A fat van would be definitely fun, saying fast. So actually, it's funny you mentioned vans. I'm kind of a van fan. And at one point, I was seriously trying to find a mid-70s doo-doo brown D100 van. I just thought that would be the coolest ass shit ever. Throw some torque thrust Ds on that bad boy, and just who cares what engine's in it? Probably be a 318 with a 727 or a 9 whatever. It doesn't matter. I was just going to build a little pissed off small block for it. I thought that would be a riot. So anyway, I love that kind of stuff. Let's see. PBR is saying, I have a 2020 392 Scat Pack shaker and put a Chaos 85 Miller board out. Throttle body, is it worthwhile to put a ported manifold without a tune? It's still under warranty. Yeah, you can probably get away with a ported manifold. I mean, they're not going to be disassembling your car like that when you go take it in, or if you have to take it in for warranty work. They may look at that throttle body though a little bit sideways. So if you do have to take it in for warranty work, just put your stock throttle body back on. But yeah, to get the most out of that throttle body, you are going to have a ported manifold. I can tell you that just from experience. You're basically not getting much with an 85 millimeter throttle body on a non-ported manifold. And anybody that knows these manifolds, there's more and more people now that are starting to mess with them. You'll find that throat is really the restricting part of that manifold. So I put it to you like this. When I port one of those manifolds, it takes me about 6-ish hours, sometimes a little bit more than that. And you got to remember, I've been doing these manifolds, these 392 manifolds for a while. But it'll take me about 6 hours to hit those manifolds, or at least to finish them, from start to finish. And I would say that on the 392s, it will take me the majority of my time working on the throat of that thing, just reshaping it to where it'll actually flow a halfway decent number, at least by comparison. Clutch is saying, my butt dyno has measured 573 horsepower, even though all I have is a Hellcat intake and a K&N drop-in filter. Full straight pipe with CAD delete, stainless power, long tubes, and a J green tune. Nice. I don't trust that 573 though. No, you did not gain 100 horsepower from those mods. But listen, it probably sounds like you did, so that's all that matters. Auto Enthuse is asking about a safe RPM shift point on a stock Hellcat. What do you shift at? I actually have a it waterfalls up in terms of shift points. But I don't really like to turn the Hellcats much more than about 6,600 RPM. There are some things that I won't just give out in terms of what my shift points are, but I will tell you that it is less than 6,500 RPM. The reason why I don't like turning them up that high is because there's really no gain up there. The problem is that the power curve comes out and it tabletops like this a lot of times, especially with stock boost cars. And the problem with that is once you see from you guys' point of view, once you see that horsepower curve start to lay over, you've got to remember that if it's laying over like that, you are hemorrhaging torque because that horsepower calculation is based directly off of your torque number. So what I like to do is I like to be a little bit shy on my 1 to 2. I'll carry my 1 to 2 a little bit farther because your 2 to 3 shift is, well, it's one of your biggest drops. So let's say in first gear, if you're looking at a 6,300 RPM shift point, I might carry the 2.3 to 64. And basically everything else, I really don't go much above 6,300. So if you're targeting somewhere around 6,300, the car is going to be in a real happy place. Your 4 to 5 would be a little bit higher than that. And your 5 to 6, I would say carry that out to about 6,400 RPM. But again, I really don't like carrying any more than 65. And that's a safe place for that short block. What I really don't like seeing is guys stretching these things out to 68, 6,900 RPM. I know that there's a lot of guys that do that. In fact, I know that there's a whole lot of guys that do that. In fact, 7,000 RPM is not all that uncommon. But I just got to tell you, I mean, just remember that these are stock components, really weren't designed to spool that high, although you can kind of get away with it. Stick with that formula and you'll be fine. If you want to spin it higher, the risks that you're going to be taking are possible piston failure at the wrist pin and if you are really banging the hell out of it regularly, especially if you hang the thing off of the rev limiter, doing dumb stuff, things like that, push rods could maybe make an appearance as being an issue. But that being said, stick with 65 and you'll be good. Let's see. Oh, Ivan's got his preferred snack up here. Try eating marshmallows with nacho cheese on them. Interesting thing, the salt, what was it? The salt in nacho cheese, one of the preservatives is sodium, carbon, hydrogen, oxygen. It's NaCHO. Anyway, kind of a fun fact. Chemical composition. Clutcher Guy 2 saying the 573 was measured in my third gear 6-speed manual. I posted a short 10-second video of it. Nice. Mono Red Hippie saying, what's up, B? What up, man? Hey, Jason's in. Hey, thank you very much, man. I appreciate that. Why am I not getting super chat things here, notifications saying, I'm looking for another 392 or Hellcat, but the prices are very high. Do you think prices will come back down to earth soon? What are your thoughts? They will for 392 cars. Don't expect them to really fall out of the sky on Hellcats. The funny thing about the Hellcats is that they have actually kind of gone up in value. It's kind of weird how that's worked out, but 392s, there's just a bunch more of them out there. They're easier to get your hands on. Those prices can come down, but again, the Hellcats, they're going to continue to drop, but they're going to drop at a much, much lower trajectory than the 392s will. But either way you go, I mean, especially if you're looking for a new project, looking for something to have fun with, the good thing about the 392s is that if you're looking to pick one up on the used market, the 17s and 18s are getting a little bit easier to digest. And then getting into the 19s are even better. And if you're thinking about getting one, I would highly suggest going with a 19 and up. The gadgets and gizmos are just so much better, and I like the new OS with some of the new cam timing is really good. But thank you for that, man. I appreciate that. Alex is asking, alternative to the stroker setup, how would a 392 react to a Procharger or a Whipple, assuming I dropped in some new pistons? Well, they react just like every other engine does. I mean, if you put in a different set of pistons and rods and threw in a Whipple setup and your compression ratio was kept at a little bit more of a conservative, like a 10-to-1, I mean, that would be sick to death. And you guys, you got to remember that the 392 is what the Hellcat engine was baselined with. I mean, it was a 392 that they were testing the viability of the IHI supercharger and everything else, compression ratios and things like that. So, yeah, you can absolutely do that. And I would say that would be a great place to start. However, the problem is if you go with the Whipple, and it's going to be a lot more fun to drive than a Procharger, but if you're going to put that thing on a drag strip, the problem that you're going to run into is that now you've got an HP 70 that is going to be your weak link. And the problem is that once you get into the weak links of this thing, you're going to start finding them rapidly. So that leaves you with the Procharger. It's softer on parts. You just don't get that bam. You don't get that hit like you do with a screw type positive displacement supercharger. So I'm left gritting my teeth. The other downside to the Procharger setup is they're soft down low, and they don't ever feel fast. I don't really want to say that with too much conviction, because I know that there's a lot of guys that'll argue that point, and I'll even argue that point. But the reality is that everyone that I've ever driven left me wanting a little bit, mainly because these cars are heavy and you need the torque to get them to get going. To overcome inertia at any speed, now you're talking about cars that are not very aerodynamic, just cruising down the road, and they're heavy. again, that positive displacement supercharger is a lot more fun. It's a lot more satisfying to drive, and you know where your money's been spent. Think of it like this. You get your money's worth every inch of travel on that throttle with a positive displacement supercharger. With a centrifugal supercharger, it's only down here. It's only when you've revved the thing up. Your pedal down here, that's where your money's being spent, not here at partial throttle. So, man, I mean, if you are hell-bent and whiskey-bound to build something out of a 392, that's kind of the way to go. You know, Whipple set up or an E-Force with the Maggie 2650. Real good place to start. But again, Mopar already did a pretty good job with the Hellcat. And if you want that kind of experience, you've got a very robust package sitting there just waiting on you with that Hellcat. And it's not, and I know that is a really, it's almost like a trope at this point. It's just such a campy way of going, well, you should have bought a Hellcat. It's not that at all, trust me. And I'm the first to admit that I love the NA aspect of this. I'm a big NA fan, as a matter of fact. If you start talking about supercharging, it's the dadgum transmission that is your limiting factor in all of this. And, in fact, I was saying this early on, that I was absolutely dumbfounded as to why the 392 didn't get the HP 90. I get it. If my aunt had a package, she'd be my uncle. But if the 392 came with the HP 90, you'd see a hell of a lot more fast 392s on the road. I guarantee you that. Scat Pack 392 saying, what's up, man? Got the arm flex. I like it. Thank you again, Jason. I appreciate that, buddy. And I don't know why it's not popping up over here. The super chats is what I'm talking about. Gordon saying, what up, B? Got the horns up with the bald guy with the shades. I like it. Gordon saying, you gonna go to the track this Friday by chance? I'm gonna try to. I'm hoping I can. Let's see. Gordon's asking, I did have a thought today. Are the rear diffs stronger on the Hellcats versus Scat Packs? Nope. I've got an old ass Scat Pack rear end in the Mistress. Reason being, the rear gears suck on the 6-speed Hellcat cars. So the 6-speed Hellcat cars are 3.7 gear ratios. Arguably a good gear ratio if you've got a mild cam in a 392. With an 8-speed, go with a set of 370 gears. If you've got a converter-friendly cam, that can really wake things up a little bit for you. But the main thing is that the 6-speed car suffers from its first gear, which is to say that it is a 226 or a 2.28 first gear, which means that you're basically doing 60-something miles an hour in first gear. It's not very good for acceleration. The rest of it is just carrying inertia at that point. But yeah, I feel what you're saying, man. Modern Red Himmy saying, snowy Maryland, fun for driving powerful rear-wheel drive cars. I bet it is. Cluster92 saying, how much should Scat Pack catalytic converters about 25,000 miles go for? I've had a guy offer me $50 and others saying that's too cheap. What are your thoughts? Hold on to them. And actually, your catalytic converters, I mean, they're no detriment to power. I'm running damn near 9s with in really good air with my stock catalytic converters. And I mean, Demons run deep into the 9s with stock catalytic converters. So they're not a detriment to performance. In fact, I dyno tested it and I track tested it. And I hate to tell you this, but there was basically not much more than a dyno variance in terms of torque down low with absolutely 0 horsepower difference up top. So hold on to them. Do not get rid of them. Unless somebody just says, I'll give you $500 for them. I wouldn't let them go. Shift Nation saying, what up, B? Got the ball guy with the shades and the arms. I like it. Junior's checking in saying, even Professor B. I like it. Thank you very much. Shift Nation's asking, any hidden heavy parts we can take off for weight reduction, speakers, plastics, horn, etc. Yeah, well, we all know how heavy that horn is. I mean, the trick really is to just place the horn in the back of the car. Just mount it to your back bumper, and then when you launch the car, press the button, and you're going to use the sound waves of the horn to press you forward. That's a joke. Please don't do that. That's a terrible idea. Anyway, yeah, there's all kinds of stuff. Okay, so First, let's start off with bumper supports. I still have stock bumper supports, but that's about 40 pounds. You can remove those, put the Speedlogic's bumper supports, and that costs you money. Rear seat delete, that's going to save you about 45 pounds. You get a Mopar rear seat delete. The net difference is 45 pounds. The total difference is about 53 pounds if you remove it without a rear seat delete. So there's roughly 100 pounds. Wheels and tires, if you go with a drag pack, you can save 80, 90 pounds there. So there's another 100 pounds. The HK system, if you have it, that speaker box, believe it or not, only weighs 14 pounds, but the tray above it weighs 12 pounds. So, you know, there's another 20 odd, 30 pounds the way it sits. So now we're down to about 230 pounds of weight reduction. This is where things kind of start to peter off a little bit. So the passenger seat weighs 58 pounds. Not really sure if it's worth removing because I didn't see any gains by removing it. The next is door cards, which, I mean, you can play catch with those things. They don't weigh anything. The speakers, in total, you're probably looking at somewhere around 15 pounds worth of speakers. If you really got aggressive and, you know, pulled door speakers, you could probably get away with, I don't know, maybe a grand total of 22, 24 pounds in speakers. The rest of it, though, is going to be pretty hit and miss. There's not a whole lot more that you can remove from the car without really removing the car from the car. But if you've got a Hellcat or an SRT, those brakes are a little bit heavy. You can go with a set of a company called Demon Performance, not to be confused with Demon the car front rotors. That'll save you about 12 pounds in total, about 6 on either side. Use those on a few builds, and they're rotors. They do just fine. From there, lighter weight rear brake kits, much lighter weight front brake kits, and the like. I mean, this is really where you're going to start to fillet, you know, really thinly slice your weight savings. You can really get crazy with wheels and tires, you know, for even extra weight savings on top of what a drag pack would save you. However, I will absolutely caution you at that point, because running around on a set of glorified beer can thin wheels is a recipe for denting, mangling, and basically marring up an extremely expensive set of wheels. And of course, driving around on bias plies isn't very much fun. Speaking of which, being not fun to drive around, you can always unbolt the front sway bar. I think that's about another 20 pounds. And you can kind of see where this is going. You know, that's about your grand total of realistic weight savings. In total, I think you can, for a street car, honestly, if you really wanted to get funky with it, you could probably get the thing down to about 3,900-ish pounds, maybe 3,950 without driver. And then you can get into, again, you know, racing seats and all these other things that can bring that number down just a little bit more. So there's your kind of a run-of-the-mill weight savings menu. I always caution guys when you start talking about weight savings, though, because, again, at what point does the car stop being the car? And this is, again, the joke that I always throw out there. Is just 2 years ago when I was at the Legion of Demons event, and I'm looking around, and of course, you know, we're looking, Ray and I are looking to reset the as delivered record with the Demon. And, you know, I'm looking around and I'm looking inside of cars, and I'm seeing, you know, cars that are the same color on the inside than they are on the outside. In other words, if it's red on the outside, they don't have any door panels in these things. There's nothing, their door cards are out of the car. There are all of these parts that are no longer a part of the car. And so you just kind of laugh and go, okay, well, look, let me get this straight. Okay, so what if I reskin the doors or just put new doors on the car? Is it still the car that I bought? What about if I replace the hood or the roof or the trunk lid or pick another, you know, set of body panels? At this point, is it really still the car? That's for you to decide. And I think there's some people that say, look, man, this thing's a race car. I'm going to do whatever I want with it. It's my car, by the way, and this is just what I'm going to do with it. Well, fine, go for it. I mean, there's people that'll make those parts. I see no reason to, you know, argue the point with you. But the reality is that there are some arguments for and against doing a bunch of the weight reduction mods. I would say that depending on how much money you want to spend on weight reduction, which is kind of funny when you think about it, because you're spending money to take things off of your car. You kind of do that for free. But anyway, when it comes to the wheels and tires and all that other stuff, that can become one of those issues that are not necessarily safety, maybe related, but it takes the car at that point. You know, some wheel and tire combinations you could drive around on the street indefinitely. Race Stars, Forge Lines, those are some wheels that you could drive around all the time. Ford Stars be the same thing. They're all basically just really good, or at least street friendly, work with the weight of the car type of products. You start getting in some of the welds and some of the other real expensive, super lightweight stuff, you'll just end up destroying it. So anyway, hopefully that answers the question. Oh yeah, you could take off the horn, remove the squirter, the windshield squirters, the windshield wipers, do a side mirror delete. Let's see what else. Pull the carpet out of the thing, get all the sound deadening out of there, because you know I didn't pay for all this horsepower to not hear it. Take everything out of the glove compartment. Let's see what else. I don't know. I think that's about it. Maybe take the lights out of the overhead thing. I don't know. Superior Fit Body LLC is asking, what is the main difference between a Redeye and a regular Hellcat? The main difference is the supercharger. Redeye and Demon come with an IHI 2.7 liter supercharger. The Hellcat comes with a 2.4 liter supercharger. Actually, technically, it's I think 2.38, but also made by IHI. From there, you have the rotating assembly itself. The rotating assembly in the Redeye and the Demon is simply basically upgraded components. Basically, it's like a set of Molnar pistons and rods in a stock short block. It's a really kick-ass short block. But aside from that, not a whole lot. Now, there is quite a bit of difference in the tune, and they are not to be confused with each other, because there's not really a problem. Well, the characteristics of the 2.7 is it generates more heat. It's a larger supercharger, but it's a little bit less efficient than the 2.3 or 2.4, depending on who you're talking to. And I guess from there, you're looking at a situation where the 2.7 does make more boost. It's got significantly less timing that's built into it, but there's also a lot more heat-related nannies that will absolutely cause that thing to lay over at the big end of the track. So I would say that, oh yeah, and then there's the cost difference. But those are really the only differences. And I'll give you an idea. Most of them will run, 1030s on average with a 309 geared Redeye, for example. It'll give you a pretty solid 1030 on a decent night on a drag pack, or at least I'd say drag pack. Let's leave it there. The Hellcat will get you with a 262 gear, because you have to remember the Hellcats don't come as aggressively geared. Same conditions, you're looking at, 1080, 1070-ish, maybe even into the 1060s. Now, once you start leveling the playing field with the Hellcat, which really is just a transmission tune and a gear swap, that's where the Hellcat will actually gain an advantage over the Redeyes. And it's not uncommon for me with my little stock boost car on 93 octane to actually tiptoe and walk around stock Redeyes and I'm both cars on 93 octane gas. But I will have to go around them because Redeyes launch harder than the Hellcat will. It's just got more instant boost, more boost at launch. It's just going to hit harder. But that's the main differences. Superior's asking, which one would I purchase? Knowing what I know now about how good I can and what all I can get away with a Hellcat, it would be hard for me to say that I would go with the Redeye, with one very significant caveat. If I wasn't going to really do any mods to the car, I was just going to take the car to the drag strip on a drag pack, get a rear seat delete car with a 309 gear, and just go out and have fun. Maybe tickle the ivories a little bit, but not get too carried away. If that were the case, and it would have to be if I got one, but it would be the Redeye narrow body Challenger. That is the car that I had originally planned on buying before I bought my Hellcat. The reason why I didn't buy it is because they wanted a lot of that paper for that car, and I just wasn't in a position to be able to buy the thing at the time. Still not, as a matter of fact. But I'm able to, with the Hellcats, get away with quite a bit, I guess, if you want to be, if I want to be frank with it. And, you know, with basically red-eyeing, if you can coin a phrase, my Hellcat, I'm actually able to run a little bit quicker than what a normal stock Hellcat, or I'm sorry, stock Redeye would run. As far as tuning and things like that, they're both extremely close. So, you know, stock boost for stock boost, gear for gear. The Redeye will be maybe 1/10 of a second quicker. But again, you're going to have a much more robust bottom end with more upside if you want to turn that thing some RPM. So the way I like to look at it is the Redeye basically has a lot of upgrades that you can't see, that you can't feel, but from a durability standpoint, they do have the upper edge. And I say that with the expressed intent of letting you know that I have seen Hellcats live through hell that has absolutely, I mean, there's no reason for these Hellcats to have ever survived what they've been through. And I've seen them come out the other side smelling like a rose. And the Redeye is even more robust than that. So, you know, it's kind of like saying, well, you know, which one's tougher? You know, a block of steel or an anvil? You know, they're both really, really good. So one of them's just a little bit more refined than the other. D's checking in. What's up? What up, D? Sam's checking in saying, I want to rest a mod an oddball Mopar. You can definitely do that. Or a town and country wagon. That would be kind of fun. Yanko's checking in saying, should I modify my 2005 Jeep Grand Cherokee? It has the 5.7 with 120,000 miles on it. It's entirely up to you, man. You can modify it. Depends on how it's been maintained. Without knowing the vehicle, it makes it real hard to say yay or nay. Clutch is saying the cats are already off. I have nowhere to store them, so they'll be chilling in my living room for the past 2 months. Yeah, don't get rid of them. Believe me, when it comes time to get rid of that car, if you ever do, you're going to need them. Gordon's saying the first gear in the Hellcat is a 266. Mine is a 292. So what if you swap the trans and tear diffs? Then that would run. Okay, so to that point, a lot of guys have brought that up, and I've said, look, man, back in the day, you had GT500s running around with a Tremec T6 transmission, not a TR6060, just a regular T6. And I mean, they're making 700-800 horsepower of the rear wheels of those things, and they were holding up just fine. I know that Tremec rates them, and they seem to rate them based off of the first gear ratio. I don't know why that is. I mean, I do know why it is. I mean, the first gear ratio is going to be more robust the closer to 1-to-1 that it is, right? But I mean, you're starting out with a 226 or whatever it is, or 266. Either way, it's just obnoxious. It's not good. So, as opposed to a 292 that comes in the other cars. Let's see. Oh, Sam's talking about doing a Hellcat swap. Riff saying, what's up, all? What's up, Rift? So I was saying, what's up, man? Finally got the pipes resonator delete on the Scat Pack. Thank you for your tips and nice vid. Oh, tips and tricks vid. So yeah, I did a tips and tricks vid on doing that pipes reso delete kit. I tell you what, of all the modifications that I've done, and look, I ain't getting paid by pipes to say this, so I can't, anyway. It's actually one of the more fun modifications that I've done, and I like the way that the car sounds now. I like the way it sounds inside the car. It sounds like it's got a performance exhaust on it, and again, all I did was just put a different set of pipes on there. I'm glad you liked it, the video. Hopefully it helped. I know that it was fun for me to make. I think the big part, where did I get that from? The big part of that video, though, I hope that you caught on to this, was just making sure that when you do that slip fit, that you don't push the smaller pipe too far into that slip fit, that'll create a pretty significant restriction. So, but yeah, thank you very much, man. I appreciate it. Samson Catalyst, I don't know what you are. Cal's asking, if you use 92 octane on a scat pack, is it going to affect the engine? It'll love it. So yeah, it'll affect it in a positive way. Cal's saying, I'm a person just like you. That's funny. Riv saying, how much would unbolting the front sway bar affect everyday driving? Man, you know, not a whole lot. I mean, it's going to be a little bit more sway-y, if you will, but I just wouldn't do it. The car, look, the thing weighs 100 pounds, right? And I know that there's guys that will say, oh, just remove it. It's not a big deal. Okay, fine. But look, that's great if you've got a Mustang or a Camaro or something that weighs 600 or 800 pounds less. But we've got these heavier cars, and I think it'd just be a good idea to have that sway bar on the car, you know, just from a, I don't know, just from a feel good kind of point of view. At the drag strip, though, it really shouldn't matter all that much. And, you know, you're not going to be taking turns at any breakneck speeds, right? So, I don't know. I just, to me, it's not really worth it. I don't see an upside to removing it. You know, whether it's 10, 15, 20 pounds, whatever. So let me give you an idea in terms of weight reduction and how that really does affect these cars. So y'all know Orange Crush, Chris's car. That's the full weight version of the Mistress. It's a Go Mango Orange Hellcat, 2016, but it's got, in essence, the exact same tune that, well, not now, I've got a little bit different tune in my car, but it's got the exact same tune that I was running in my car on it. I tuned his car. But the big difference being that he runs that car at full weight, street weight, all the time. That is his thing. His big deal is, look, I'm not going to take off all the wheels and the tires and the seats and the deletes and the thises and the thatses and all that. I paid for a Hellcat. I'm going to drive a Hellcat. And I love that. I love that about him. In fact, that's what I did with Shalandra. I had the exact same mindset with Shalandra. So his car, typically versus my car, and keep in mind, his car does make a little bit more power than mine does, which annoys me to death because it's my freaking tune on his car, and his car makes more power than mine does. But that's cool. It's a win for both of us. But the reality is that setup is usually about 1.5 tenths and about 1.5 miles off of my car. So at Moparmageddon, he pulled basically 40 pounds out of the car, speakers, a couple of other things, knickknacks and whatever, and ran the car, and it went an identical number to what it ran with all the crap in the car. So, you know, you start to get to these power levels, you start to get to this, you know, level of tune, and you want these modifications to, oh yeah, I forgot about the lightweight batteries too, by the way. But you want these modifications to make a difference, right? And they kind of do, but you got to remember it's a cumulative thing. Saving 40 or 50 pounds, if that's your total weight savings, you're not going to see that on a time slip. Not really. I mean, you're going to see it in hundredths of a second. You've got to actually cut somewhere north of, I would say, 100 to 150 pounds before you are realistically going to see a difference on a time slip. Let's see. HU37 saying, when it comes to superchargers, I think it depends on the car. I like the centrifugal in the Mustang, which it makes sense in the Mustang. These perform at high RPM. In a scat pack, I prefer the positive displacement. Thoughts? I agree with it 100%. Play to both engines' strengths. The thing is that people try to do something a little bit funky with 392s. They try to say, well, it's got all this torque down low. We're going to make up for the power up top with a supercharger. The problem with that is that, yeah, it kind of has all this power down low, but, you know, you're only gaining 130 horsepower up top. And a lot of guys go, oh my God, it's 130 horsepower. Yeah, sort of. You see, you have to look at it as a percentage of the total horsepower that the engine made before you modified it. And I am of the opinion, I'm I'm of the opinion that if you don't get more than 50% of the power out of the thing with a supercharger, you have wasted your time. And unfortunately, with the ProCharger, you just aren't able to spool it up enough unless you go E85 and, you know, smaller pulley and a lot of other things. In essence, if you can't get 600 horsepower, 640, 650 horsepower to the rear wheels, you're not really seeing a true benefit. I'll take that a step farther. My first ever Mopar Fest, I raced a guy that had this is in Shalandra, just with a tune and a drag radial, bone stock other than that. Full weight, by the way. I raced a guy with a pro-charged 392, and he beat me by a car length, not running away from me. That's all it took for me to go, there is no, I was expecting him to just start boat racing me, just bus lengths. And actually, I had him with very similar reaction times. I had him basically, I was on his passenger door at the 8th, and he finally put about a car length and a little bit more on me at the end of the track. And the weird thing about it, this weirdo, you would have thought that this guy just got through popping John Force. Like, I mean, this guy's honking his horn, pumping his fist, doing all this other shit. And I thought that was the strangest thing. And all I could think of was, my God, this guy is happy that he beat basically a tuned full weight SRT 392 Challenger. And normally I would have been compelled to say something, but the guy was making such a clown out of himself that I just kind of let it ride. I don't know whatever happened to that car. I've heard some rumors that something happened to it, but the long story short is that for a Mustang, either way you go, the supercharging, it's going to go favorably. It's a good result. But for the 392, I mean, on one hand, it's a smart play because you're only getting 7 or 8 pounds of boost. It's going to make an extra 135-ish horsepower. And if you're just out playing around with it, it's going to be fine. Go for it. I don't want to crush anybody's dreams here. And I definitely don't want anybody going, oh, he's a jaded Hellcat owner, piss on him. Look, I get that. But the reality is that I've driven so many of these cars, guys. I mean, I was the guy that would data log every single car when it got there, when it left. If anybody needed a number at the drag strip, I'm the guy that drove their car. It didn't matter if it was a 13-second car or a low 9-second car. I was the guy driving it. So there's that. I mean, that's been kind of an MO for me for a long time anyway. So it's true that the 392, again, though, see, here's the trick, or the catch-22. 392s aren't going to do well with boost because of the tight ring gap. And this is where a positive displacement supercharger is absolutely not what you want to put on a 392, because that tight ring gap means, with the heavy weight and with the amount of instant power that when I say power, I'm really talking about instant cylinder pressure that you're going to have. That's a lot of heat. That's a lot of time at peak cylinder pressure at dwell, because you're trying to overcome the inertia of a 4,400 pound car. That's when you can pop a ring land a lot easier. So, again, I've said this over and over again, the 392's blessings are also their curses. And just take that into consideration. You're basically relegated to a ProCharger, and unless you want to go built, that's where you're going to be. You can go low boost with a positive displacement supercharger, but then you're kind of right back to square one. Best bet, if you've got a 392, stick with the recipe. Tune, long tubes, and I recommend them only because of what they'll give you under partial throttle conditions. Trans tune, put a drag pack on the car, get out and enjoy. Oh, Hellcat airbox with a Hellcat air filter. Get out and enjoy the thing. Let's see. Alex is asking, can an Axleback make a difference sound-wise? I have headers and tuned. Yeah, I mean, they do. In fact, the Axleback really is the pipes resonator delete. I did the how-to video on the install on that. Yeah, it does. It makes it a little bit louder, about 10%. Let's see. Oh, Rick is talking to HI about the, or HU about the Pro Charger. It says he doesn't like it, and that's kind of what I was getting at. Callus is saying, if you put carbon fiber doors on, is it still street legal? Yeah, I believe it is if you don't mention to the person that's inspecting your car that you have carbon fiber doors. Look, man, I don't know of anybody that's going to fail a car in that respect. All I can tell you is this. It's a carbon fiber door, which means that it is carbon fiber covered in resin, which means that it is not metal, and carbon fiber doesn't bend, it breaks. And if somebody tags you and you have a carbon fiber door with no internal reinforcements to keep that car from becoming part of your anatomy, then it's probably a better idea to leave the doors that Mopar decided would be good to put on the thing, and that the DMV has cited as being part of a solid safety enclosure, because you have to remember that the doors, when they're closed, also are part of your crumple zones and the load transference of a frontal crash around the actual cage of the car itself. Without that portion available, it will blast those doors right apart. So, or has the potential to. So just know that coming into it. It's not just a side impact, it's also frontal impacts. That door being made out of plastic, basically, it can hurt, obviously, the safety of the car, not just from a side impact, but from a front impact as well. Sam saying, I saw Demonology just fitted carbon doors. I'm interested to see what his actual weight savings is. About 80 pounds, if memory serves me correct. But again, his car is a race car, not a street car. So, that's what he can do with it, because it's a race car. Alex is saying, how much can it cost? Not sure what it costs, but I can promise you it ain't cheap. Let's see. Riff's saying, what do you think about when people put a demon tune on a Redeye? Well, technically the Redeye already has a demon tune. The tune from a demon and the tune from a Redeye on 93 octane are identical. You can put the demon 100 octane tune on a Redeye, and it'll do everything that the demon would do as long as you're running 100 octane gasoline. The only downside is that you won't be able to turn that function on and off. That would in effect be your race tune. But yeah, I mean, you can definitely do that, and it would perform basically much the same. I was saying, I think it was Mod to Fame who did that. Yeah, I mean, it's not a big deal to do. You got to remember, though, the nannies are all still in place. So you've got thermal nannies that are at play with that 2.7 liter. And you just have to know that going into it. If you notice the car nosing over at about I would say about the 1,100 foot-ish mark, then that's when you're going to have to go in and start making some changes. Infidel is saying, I've been watching your channel for years. Cool, man. Thanks for hanging out with me, brother. Saying, I just got my Challenger Redeye with the 309 gears. Nice. I like it. See, that's the car that I expect. And I had planned on never doing anything to the car aside from maybe some transmission modifications. But the thing is, the Redeye has already got a really good transmission tune. And I mean, I was looking at the car thinking, man, all I need to do is put a drag pack on this thing, go out and run some 1030s and just have a ball with it. And so, maybe put a tune on it, maybe kind of play with some things a little bit. But the reality is that they're great cars and they're freaking durable as hell. You're going to love that car. So congrats on that, man. HU37's hanging out with Rift. Oh, yes, Rips is just, they're still hanging out, talking about that Pro Charger, not feeling that awesome. Yeah, I mean, again, you just got to, boost is where it's at, man. You got to be able to have enough manifold pressure to build about 50% more power into that combination. David saying my 2011 Challenger 5.7 with E-Force. Yep, 483 and 481 with tune and trans tune. Rest of the car is mostly stock. Do you think this would be a safe power limit for this car? Yeah, there's a lot of guys running around at that power limit. You got to remember that you are about at what a very well sorted full bolt-on 392 is. And this is the same thing that we would see with the E-Force cars versus a 392. They're always a little bit more power in the E-Force 5.7 than there was in the NA 392, but they were always extremely close. One of my all-time favorite cars to drive, and I can't say enough good things about it. So yeah, you're at a sweet spot. I can only offer this to you. Don't get greedy. Just don't get greedy with it. You're at a place where you want to throw a little bit more pulley at it. Bad idea. You're going to have a bad time. Maintain it. Make sure you're changing the oil every 4,000 miles. You'll be golden for a long, long time with that combination. It's one of my favorite combinations on those cars. Let's see. Gordon saying, so how about this? I've run several newer Scat Pack automatics and I've pulled away from them on the highway at a full car length. So is there a difference in the tune when it comes to my 15 6-speed? It could be. A lot of times when it's a 6-speed car versus an automatic, there's more parasitic loss with an automatic than there is with a 6-speed. So there's that. Also, it depends on where you're hitting it. A lot of times, if you hit him just right, you'll hit an automatic right in a doldrum, or they can hit you in a doldrum. And what that means is basically just a non-optimal place in your gearing versus where your RPM is going to sit. So, but yeah, no, that's not, I would say, uncommon. And again, the 6-speed is always going to lay down a little bit more because it has less parasitic loss. Let's see. Spirit saying, thanks, man. You know your stuff. Well, I hope so. But thank you very much. I appreciate that, buddy. Gordon saying, versus the newer automatics. I don't know, man. I mean, I can tell you this, man. The difference comes when, and this is the other thing, you can shift your car pretty much whenever you want. A lot of the guys with the automatics aren't doing the manual shift. And if they are, they're not getting it right. You put a trans tune on the automatic and that's going to level that playing field out quite a bit. Moto X is saying California has crappy 91 octane. Yeah, I know. I used to live there, man. Alex is saying, so if I want the reliability and durability of the Hellcat package over modding a 392, how do I make it feel punchier down low other than the 309 gears? It's really, you don't even need the 309 gears, although they help, but it's just going to be in the driver command torque portion of the tune. If you've got it tuned, if not, get a pedal box for it. And you can always ramp up the pedal sensitivity, and that's where you'll get the I guess a little bit more driving excitement is really the best way to put it. You're just manipulating the throttle, but it makes all the difference in the world. Now, I've said this so many times. This is something that should be a driver adjustable parameter, the same way that the transmission is adjustable, the steering is adjustable, and the ride is adjustable. The throttle sensitivity should also be adjustable. And I think it would be great if you want to ramp it up, make it a little bit more aggressive, or if you want to chill it out and put it in kind of a chill mode, which you can do with the pedal box, which a lot of guys like better than the pedal commander. So when I say pedal commander, pedal box, they're both interchangeable things to me. But I used to love the pedal commander, which is what I was using. It's an little bit older technology, but the reason why I liked it so much is because if I was on a road trip, I could just, and this was in my E63, I would just put it in eco mode, just kind of chill mode. And it didn't matter how I was playing with the throttle or whatever, it would just kind of drift on down the road. If I wanted to be more aggressive, I would just, bump it up in sensitivity and make the car a little bit more aggressive. So I like that about that kit. And I mean, I can adjust all that in the tune, but if you don't have a tune, then you can definitely go that route. Cody's asking, what should I get? The 392 Charger RT or a 2015, 2017 5.0? After my Escape is paid off or paid enough down on trade value, would want to get my first muscle car. Can be manual or auto. Let's see. Well, it all depends on what you like, man. I mean, you got to drive them both and see which one fits your needs and fits your personality best. You know, if you like instant torque hit, obviously the 392 is going to put you right where you need to be with that. If you like something that winds out, then the 5 liter is going to be where it's at. And also, here's the other thing. Don't buy the car based on potential. This is where a lot of guys really get it wrong. They'll say, well, you know, a Mustang, look at what all you can do. Mustangs love boost, and Mustangs love this, that, and Mustangs. Or, you know, the Scat Pack can do this, and the Scat Pack is, you know, whatever. It doesn't matter. Don't buy the thing based on what you can do to it. Buy it based on whether you like the car or not. Buy it based on if it fits. That's the other thing, is that a lot of people forget that when you go to buy the car, you've got to feel comfortable driving it. You know, you're going to like the way that it looks and everything, but you're spending all of your time in the driver's seat. Make sure that it fits you. That's another bit of advice that I can give, that, you know, some of these cars, like, you know, I did a video a long time ago on the Camaro, man. I admittedly, I was still a little bit butthurt that they had priced the Z28, I don't know, the 5th gen Camaro. They'd priced it 72 freaking grand, and I was saving my pennies and dimes to buy one. But anyway, 6th gen just didn't fit me at all. But the Mustang has really good ergonomics, at least the GT350 did. But the comfort level of the Challenger is on a different level altogether. So that's the direction that I went. And of course you may agree, or it may work differently for you. H237 is asking, is a reduction in rotating mass replacing a steel with an aluminum drive shaft worth it? I haven't seen it. The engine makes about 500 horsepower, and the reduction in weight would be about 12 pounds. Yes, but what about the inertial load? See, this is one thing you have to remember. Let's say that we're talking about something that's as big around as the end of this flashlight, okay? And I can sit here and I can turn this flashlight just like this in my hands, right? And I don't know what this flashlight weighs. It weighs as much as a flashlight, all right? Now I've got this roll of paper towels over here. It is maybe about the same weight. I'm not sure, but I can tell you that I've got to work a little bit harder to overcome the inertial load of the larger diameter with this roll of paper towel than I would with the flashlight, okay? So the argument with larger diameter, lighter weight drive shafts is that whatever weight savings you have can be negated by the inertial load that you have to overcome to turn the larger diameter. So I'll put it to you like this. I didn't see any benefit with the Hellcat going from I didn't see any losses, I should say, going from the 4-inch drive shaft to the stock Redeye drive shaft. I saw no loss whatsoever. So I have to assume that there's nothing really there in terms of power, or rather I should say performance gains. It didn't take any more power to turn it. What I will say is that if you have something that's making a lot of power, then it might make sense to get a different drive shaft from a durability standpoint. But then you start to get into, well, if it's more durable, maybe, but what about harmonics and vibrations and things like that? That's when you really have to check yourself and make the decision. How much NVH can you really live with? My tolerance level to that is very, very, very low. And luckily, Multiple Mopars was able to hook me up with that drive shaft. So big thanks to my buddy Multiple Mopars. And, that thing has been one of the absolute best drive shaft I've ever had. It is flawless to any speed, and as you would expect, because it's factory drive shaft. And of course, it's very, very strong, and much stronger than I'll ever need for any power level that my car gets to. Ken, thank you very much. Man, these super chats are not popping up, man. I apologize, guys. Ken saying, thanks for addressing the Redeye. One thing I would recommend is not leaving the line at too high of an RPM, because it will hurt your 60 foot times. I typically will launch at about 1500 RPM. I haven't seen any real benefit in launching at 1800, 2000 RPM. I just haven't seen, it hasn't hurt anything, but it hasn't helped anything. So I can see where it could have a potential to sting it, but I launch at about 1500, and that's kind of that's all of them like that. The Redeye loves it, the Demon loves it, and the Hellcat loves it. So let's see. But thank you very much, man. I appreciate it, Ken. And sorry, man, these aren't popping up. Normally, if something pops up, I'll scroll down immediately to the super chat. So make sure I'm not forgetting anybody else in here or missing anybody else. But thank you again, buddy. Let's see. Speed Freak's asking, hey, B, what octane was the old Cam 2 race fuels, and how do they compare to today's fuels like MS-109, Q16, etc.? I think that Cam 2 was C16. It was not Q16 because Q is based around ethanol. If memory serves me correctly, and I haven't even thought about Cam 2 in forever, but I believe that was all C16. So it would be higher octane than MS-109, lower octane than Q16. Fairly decent fuel. I would say, I think it was like 107 or 110 octane. Maybe it was 112. God, it's been forever. I apologize, man. I haven't even thought about that fuel in forever, but that's where it would fall in line. It is a leaded race fuel, though, for sure. So in other words, GT260 or GT260 Plus wouldn't apply to that. Alex is saying, I've got to move to New Mexico soon, and it looks like 91 is the highest octane gas out there. Is my SRT going to like that less than 93? A little bit, but I mean, it'll be fine. 91 is A-okay with the SRT. I wouldn't worry too much about that. Plus, if you're going to New Mexico, you're going to be running a little bit higher elevation, so you probably won't need as much of the extra knock resistance up there. So it may end up working out it will work out just fine for you. Let's see. Oh, Rift is saying that he's been driving both his SRT8 and the Hellcat on 91 octane, and the Hellcat's on the 85 and it ran fine on 91. Yeah, most of them will. The thing is that you've got, if your Hellcat is stock, you have got a ton of nanny in that car. And I can tell you that even on 93 octane down here at sea level, you're going to still see 2.5, sometimes 3 degrees of knock retard in a stock Hellcat. It's not uncommon. We're saying they ran okay. Even got a 10.6 on 91 for my stock cat. Yeah, see, that's the thing. I mean, you're not going to see, it's not going to vary too much. And by the way, 3 degrees, 2 degrees, you're not really going to see that show up on even at the track. It's really not going to see it because it'll take it away and then it throws it right back in. Brendan's saying, going to high horse performance to do their stage 1 on the Hellcat. Nice. I'm used to HP tuners and they only use Diablo. I know HHP has a great rep. How's Diablo in your opinion? It's fine. They all do the same thing. You're manipulating data. So they're good. And I wouldn't have any worry or any issues using Diablo. I speak HP tuners only because that's what I was taught, but Diablo's again going to get you to the same place. So I wouldn't worry about that at all. Allison's saying Mopar all the way. I like it. Mopar all the way. Riff saying, think about selling my Trinity 2 Diablo tuner that I just got recently because I'm on HP now. I might want to keep it around for, quick and easy data logging. Like when you go to the track, it's good to just take a look at knock retard. That's what I used mine for. They're light. You don't have to have your laptop. Kind of makes it nice. Nuclear's asking, B-Max, what's your take on the Edelbrock situation? I haven't really dug too deep into that. I know that they shut a lot of those, they shut the factory down or something like that. I don't know. Are they moving? I don't know. I'm going to rely on you guys to fill me in, but I wouldn't be surprised if they are moving out of state. Junior's asking, what would you recommend for a 392 cam swap? It is all going to depend on what you want that thing to do. What else are you going to do to that car? You're going to need long tubes. Are you deep into this thing enough to where you're willing to put a different converter in it? Are you going to re-gear it? what intake are you going to run? There's a lot of different variables that are kind of come into that. If it's going to be a street car, I would always recommend not going more than 220 on the intake and about 226, 230 on the exhaust. It's not worth losing the torque to gain a chunk of horsepower that you're just not really ever going to drive around and enjoy it. I'll put it to you another way. I've driven cammed 392s, and this is what got me into putting cams together for 392s. As a matter of fact, I had driven several cam 392s that were terrible to drive. I'm not going to mention where the cams came from. I'm not even going to joke around about that. It's been a while since then, and cam technology and the understanding of what will work for these cars has started to catch up with the times. It's taken a while, but yeah, that's what got me into looking at cam profiles for these cars. And when I was at Pikes Performance, I put together their cam program and worked with comp cams to put together some custom grind cams that worked out really well. I spec'd them, and they worked out great. So I guess the bottom line here is that if you have the thought of putting a cam in a 392, please make sure that you understand that you are going to be compromising torque down low for power up top, just like any other cam swap. With the main difference being that you have a heavy car, and when you start giving up too much torque down low for power up top, it'll make it a little bit soft down low. Cal is saying, is there any danger in buying a scat pack with a lot of miles and just putting in a forged Arrington 392 long block? No, because if you're replacing the engine, what's the difference? The only thing you have to worry about there is transmission, making sure that transmission's in good shape. Let's see. Oh, Brendan's checking in with Riv. Let's see, Callis, maybe a dumb question, but why do these pistons even require a ring gap in the first place? Why not just create a piston that doesn't need one? Well, all pistons have to have piston rings because all pistons are tapered, because thermal load will heat the piston where it's getting thermally, cooked by your combustion process. And so your piston doesn't swell up at an even rate. It actually swells up like this, kind of like you're opening a book almost. And to seal the piston to the cylinder wall, you have to have piston rings. The ring gap is just inherent into what it takes, because the ring itself is a circle with a gap on it. So you put that around the piston, and it's the gap itself that you have to look for. Now, the tighter the ring gap, the more efficient it's going to be in terms of holding in the actual pressure in the cylinder. But realistically, you can open them up and you're not going to get too much blow by into the crankcase. The idea is to keep as much of that pressure on top of the piston and not let it go past the piston and into the crankcase itself. So the issue is you have to have piston rings. The problem is that the manufacturer is going to make them tight because that builds in efficiency. Horsepower, though, is going to want them a little bit wider because we need efficiency under high load conditions. The manufacturer is going to give it a high efficiency at cruise conditions and be acceptable under high performance conditions. That's the reason why. Hopefully that answers the question. Cody's saying, so what you're saying is that if you slap a turbo onto the 392, I can become a certified astronaut. Well, your pistons may become certified astronauts. Slash is saying, my dream is twin turbos on my scat pack. A lot of folks have been talking about twin turbos lately for scats. Turbos are actually softer and on the car's parts, and I think it'd work out great. Frank's saying, thoughts on a 2010 Dodge Charger SRT8? Is it a classic? Hard to say about the Charger SRT8. There's some that'll argue that the Challenger is really more the classic there, but I think the Charger SRT8 is going to keep a loyal following because it is such a different type of car. So to some people, yeah, it is going to be a classic. To me, I don't know. It'd be kind of tough. Actually, you know what? Any of the SRT cars are an instant classic. It doesn't matter what it is. You have to remember that at that point in time, that is what put Dodge at the very top of the food chain in terms of American muscle cars. Let's see. Tommy's asking, what would happen with twin turbos on a Scat Pack? I mean, if you tune it right, it'll run good. BB78 is asking, hey, B, any experience or thoughts with HPP and Dallas as a Mopar tuner? No, I don't have any real experience with those guys. So I couldn't really answer that. We had a lot of guys from Dallas bring their cars to Pikes Performance. So, I mean, there's that. I can't really speak to what they were up to in Dallas. Scatpack392 saying, I'm full bolt-on with drag pack and some weight reduction, and fastest I've ran was 727 at 95.68. That is fast. I like it. Let's see. Sam saying, I can't wait for FCA, now PSA, to put the Hellcat engine in a mid-mount ProMaster van. I'd like to see it in the in one of the minivans. I think that'd be pretty sick. Rose saying, still need to fix the tune with my new 309 on my Hellcat. Still feels very sluggish. You got to throw some driver command torque in there, brother. Absolutely. I'd say bump everything up by about 10%. Don't forget you have to do both sides of the table, so you have to do the inverse as well. This is saying, my 18300, I want to put a blower kit, but can't find one. Look to E-Force. That's what I would do. Rip's saying, I would think that the pedal commander or pedal box would just be doing it artificially compared to having the tune fixed, so my Hellcat does not feel sluggish. They're both basically doing more or less the same thing. I mean, the pedal commander is just a signal intercept, and, well, I mean, when you think about it, the ECU is just interpreting what your pedal is doing, and it's giving an output based on that table. So it's not altogether different. I'd say give it a shot, man. They're not bad. You'd say, I might be wrong. I don't know, man. I'd give it a shot and see what you think. Let's see. I don't know what that is, Sam. Let's see. Nine saying, would you do a cat delete or install spark plug non-followers post-cat on a 6.1 Hemi, or get new catalytic converters, or get straight pipes? For me, man, I wouldn't do a cat delete. I've already done the math on this. I've already run the cars. I can already tell you that pulling the cats off the thing, you don't get any power out of it. You just get noise. And here's the other thing. If you have a stock cat back, it's going to sound good without the cats on it. So, you know, if you're into the whole green thing, that's one thing. I just, you know, I prefer to have them on the car, mainly because, again, there's no downside to having them on the car, save for, you know, saving what, 10 pounds. But here's the thing. If you pull the cats off the car and you straight pipe the thing with an X pipe, it will sound like ass. And I cannot tell you how bad the car will sound. Now, if you take out the X pipe, run an H pipe, and, you know, do a couple of other tricks like throw a resonator at the back of the car, it would sound pretty decent. But the problem is that loud for the sake of being loud is one thing, but when you have an X pipe, they're very shrill sounding. It's got the tone of like a bitchy girlfriend almost. To say there's this like real, it's not even like a cool, scary sound of shrill. It's this like sound. It's just, it sounds like such ass, not good ass, like not good ass. That's what it sounds like. It's not good. It's ass. I'll put it like this. We had a Hellcat at the shop that had, oh God, it sounded terrible. It was stock manifolds, no cats, no mufflers anywhere to be found, but it still had the X pipe. And every time that thing would start, I wanted to throw a stapler through the windshield of that thing. I hated, and it was loud, and it sounded like, what's the word I'm looking for? Ass! Anyway, no, don't do that. Canada's saying, hey, what's up, Canada guy? Saying, how's it going tonight, Brian? It's going well, man. Hope it's going good for you too, man. Got some upgrades ready for the 6.1. Poly cradle bushings, good idea. And BMR lower arms, another good idea. Just got to wait for the snow to melt and install and test. Got the arm flex. I like it. Yep, you're going to like it. Dave's saying, guys, just get the SXT front brakes. They're the same size as the Demon single pistons, and they stop and they're lighter. You can. That's an option. I know some guys were looking at the Scat Pack brakes as well. So, you know, I don't see a problem doing that. I like going parts bin diving, and there's no reason why you can't get away with a lot of that stuff. But again, you know, I don't know. What exactly are you getting for it? That's the main thing. 9X is asking, what is your opinion on removing the stock vacuum line that comes from the throttle body on the 6.1 and replacing it with an air filter? He's talking about the breather that basically goes to the throttle body or to the air box assembly, basically the intake of that. I actually did that on Shalandra. I blocked it off and ran a filter at the valve cover. And the reason why I did that is because I just don't like the idea on the NA cars, especially, is sucking in crankcase heat. So, you know, you've got a filter there. You're filtering the PCV circuit. Remember, it is a circuit. You're still filtering the PCV circuit. You're just not introducing the fumes to the intake tract. Now, there's some that will say, well, yeah, but when you go watt that filter side, it now becomes the pressure relief side, basically under wide open throttle. And that's very true. And if you have it going to the throttle body or the intake tract, there is a lower pressure there, which will help to evacuate crankcase pressure. Look, that's fine, whatever. But the reality is that people have been putting filters on those things and it runs great. And I ran great, and everybody's run great with that system in place. So just keep going with it. Cody's saying the 5.0 intrigues me because it's crazy top end speed, the RT and 392 Charger. I sat in and I could fall asleep inside of it. Absolutely. They're real comfy. And again, the Mustang does a lot of things really, really, really well, aside from being fast. I mean, the ergonomics to me are very good. The other side of the Mustang is that the use of interior space is more efficient. Their back seats, for example, actually fold down, whereas the Challengers don't, even though they do. So there's that. But no, either way you go, you're really not going to go wrong. Let's see. Sam's talking about someone on Facebook marketing blinker fluid labels. Could definitely do that. Natalie Mason's asking, why do chocolate labs drool so much? Like, so much? You know, it's hard to say, Mrs. Mason. You know, it could be just that they're just so excited and they get worked up and they just got all lathered up to see you. And man, that's, it's like me when I see you, baby. That's the way I feel. I just am a little bit more able to control my drool. Cody Bass saying, pricing though, I could only afford the 5.0, the RT Charger, and the Camaro SS. Well, that's part of it though, right? I mean, the 5.0 is definitely a lot more affordable. You know, I mean, they make a zillion of them. So you keep that into consideration, but there's a reason why they make so many, because they sell so many. True Day's checking in saying, I grew up in a GM family, but all it took to turn me off from the ZL1 and the Z06 was sitting in them at the dealership. No way I could comfortably daily drive those. SRT 392 was the only way in 2015. Good point. I had my C5 Z06, and I can tell you from just living with that contraption that, you know, getting in and out of it, the thing ran like it rode rather like it had, you know, solid joints all around it, like it was always on the bump stops. The 392 is just such a cool departure from that. And for a lot of folks, especially a lot of Ford folks, not so many as far as the GM crowd is concerned, but a lot of Ford guys were Ford guys only because Mopar didn't make something that they would want to drive. And with especially the 2015 Challengers, that was pretty much a game changer for a lot of these guys. And it really got them back into Mopar. They're big, they're comfy, they're easy to get in and out of. Super fun to take on road trips. Again, that comfort factor comes into play there. So yeah, lots of really good reasons. Shipped is asking, what is your Instagram? Need more Beemaster. I don't really do a lot with Instagram, so I think that would be a little bit of a disappointment for you. I'll post up pictures at the track or things like that, but I've kind of shied away from answering questions on Instagram primarily because I would get questions at like all hours of the night, and especially when I got to wake up crazy early, getting a question about something that wakes you up or whatever because I forgot to turn the ringer off on my phone at 3 o'clock in the morning is enough to piss somebody off. So I just don't really do too much with it. But if you got questions on here, man, let me know. And like I say, I've got a link to the Instagram page somewhere on the bio somewhere in the wherever it is. Anyway, so yeah, if you ever get on there, like you'll see I might post time slips on there, things like that. Like, again, like pictures at the track or something like that, or just goofy stuff that I just find interesting. Let's see. Vile says E-Force is moving to Texas. Very nice. Nuclear Shark is saying, thanks, Vile. Just wonder what was going on with Edelbrock. What part of Texas are they moving to? That's pretty cool. Alex is asking, what are your thoughts on modern muscle 392 cams? They claim gains across the power band with very minimal to no loss in torque down low. It depends on which cam you're talking about. I will tell you that I would not go that route. I would probably go, if you're looking for an off-the-shelf cam, there are a couple of places that would be better. HHP. You're also going to look at comp cams, the HRT series. Give Dr. Differential a shout. If you want something a little bit more aggressive, I've put together some cams through Dr. Differential that would probably steer you in the right direction. Let's see. What are your thoughts on this is from Alberto. What are your thoughts on these 6.4 Chrysler 300s? They're awesome. I wish like crazy that they made them for the States, but they don't anymore. So, but I love them. Let's see. Oh, Non-X is asking, would that work on a boosted engine? Absolutely, it would work on a boosted engine. Should say, what is a nice through muffler for a 392? Looking for a rumble deep tone. I've noticed a lot of people straight pipes around sound raspy off. Magnaflow is the way that I would go. Go with a 3 in, 3 out and have your muffler shop just tear up and then tear down out of that pipe. You'll be just fine. Scavenger saying, one of my first mods was replacing that PCV tube with a K&N breather. Absolutely, mine too. Scatpack saying, I want to add a catback for sound. What's your thoughts on a Hooker Blackheart H-pipe catback? I haven't heard one in person. The ones that I like are a little bit more subdued. I like the Magnaflow. I like, what's the other one? I like it so much I forgot its name. How about that? Mainly because Magnaflow is really, really good. So, the rest of them, not so much. I'd stay away from anything that's chambered, by the way. If you're going to run an H pipe, then the chambers are okay. But in my testing, chambered mufflers don't play nice or as nicely with X pipes. You want to flow through with an X pipe, and you can get away with either one on an H pipe. Borla Attack, Hellcat catback with active exhaust elite. That would be a good one too. Oklahoma's checking in and saying, that's on my 19 Scat Challenger. Sounded deeper than my 5.7 that had the 2.5 Borla Attack. It probably would. It's got a little bit bigger diameter. Drops that tone a little bit. Val saying that it's actually Memphis, Tennessee that Edelbrock is moving to. They teamed up with Comp. Very cool. And then Nuclear saying, Comp, did Comp buy them? So that's actually pretty cool news. There's no surprise there. I mean, there's some reasons to get out of California. I understand it completely. Like I say, I used to live in San Francisco. So, let's see. Oh, Challenger 50 is asking, do you have plans to change to a wide body Hellcat? Do you think it's worth the extra money? It's only worth the extra money if you really want that style. I like the narrow body. I like a little bit more traditional style. And I also like the fact that my Challenger, the Mistress, is actually an early production Hellcat. It's one of the first run ever Hellcats that was built in 2014, as a matter of fact. So no, I'm gonna stick with what I've got. I like the wide body Hellcat Challenger, but I like the wide body Charger. So here's the thing: when the wide body Challenger was first introduced, it just did not appeal to me, man, at all. In fact, I was kind of looking at it just, you know, you ever see a cat whenever it smells something it doesn't like? It's like that look to it. That's exactly what I was doing when I saw that. I was like, I don't like that. But when I saw one in person, that's when I figured, man, I was too quick to judge. That car in person, pictures do not do it justice. It's a gorgeous, gorgeous car. Well, I like the narrow body, again, the more traditional look, but now I get the wide bodies. Now, if you haven't seen one of the wide body Chargers, oh my God, that car was meant to be wide body. In fact, it's a more modern looking car. It's got just the lines of it along with that wide body is just right. So if I were to do anything wide body, it would be a Charger. I mean, that thing just looks so freaking good. Gordon's saying, you know, I've always wondered why the 6.4 sounded so different than the 5.7, even when I did long tubes and full exhaust on my 5.7. Yep, it's got a bigger exhaust, 2 3/4 versus 2.5. And then Broke Loma saying wide body made the Charger look like a muscle car. And how, man? So I got to tell you, like I say, I saw the first one I saw was it's like the white, though, I guess the white knuckle color, whatever it is. And it had passed me going down the highway, and I'm just kind of buzzing along. And I mean, I did like a triple take when I saw that car. It was amazing. Let's see. Shiv's saying, I live in California. My local Chevron sells a lot of VP. It's MS-109 in California, the same as everywhere else. Yes, it is. How long can a sealed VP tank last closed? So I'll put it to you like this. My understanding is that the shelf life is 24 months. I've had guys tell me that it's basically to last indefinitely. The downside, though, is that you are working with an ethanol-based fuel, and you can have the gasoline come out of suspension with an ethanol fuel. And MS-109 is an ethanol fuel. It's actually got 13, I think, percent ethanol. So there's that to consider. But yeah, 24 months in a sealed container should be good. CJ is asking, is the 3rd gen LS swapped? Example 1A is not LS swapped. She is still the SBC 305 throttle body injected engine that it came with. And I got to tell you, I like it like that. The cool thing about the 3rd gen is I get it. It's a 305. Everybody goes, it's slow. Let me tell you something. This car is so torquey. It's so punchy that it kind of makes it fun to drive. It's a cool throwback experience. And that's when it comes to cars like the 3rd gen, the LS, what the LX has in horsepower and just power production in general, it can't do one little trick that these old SBC engines can make or can do. And that is make obnoxious amounts of tip-in torque, because the ports on those heads don't flow anything. In fact, they would be doing really good to flow 185 CFM. But what comes from very small and low flowing heads is extremely high velocity. And so when you tip into the throttle, the velocity in the cylinder fill is really, really good. And it's torquey as hell. And I've said this over and over again. Underfoot, there are conditions where driving the Camaro feels torquier, more responsive, if you will, snappier in a way than the Hellcat does. I'll repeat that because it kind of bears repeating. The Camaro with a 305 TBI 4-speed automatic actually feels snappier than the Hellcat in certain driving conditions. And it's all barely tip-in throttle response. You're talking about 170, wink, wink, horsepower, and that's like maybe 170. And about, 280 pound-feet of torque versus, at the flywheel, by the way, not at the freaking wheels, at the flywheel versus, being tuned 740, 750 horsepower out of the Hellcat and about 660, 670 pound-feet of torque. How is it more? It's just the way that the power is delivered. And that's the whole argument, like we were talking about earlier, 392 versus the Hellcat. 392 feels punchier. It feels always ready to play, like it always wants to have a good time. This car is just it's built from the same mold, so to speak. It's just, it does it a different way. And that's why this car is not going to get an LS swap. It's too, and besides, it'll do a real pretty burnout too. That's the other side of it. It's all that torque, that instant torque. It won't carry a burnout. It won't carry the wheel spin, but you pop it real quick and it'll yipe the tires, and it does. It's just a lot of fun to drive. So, and it's so different. It's such a different driving experience. Look, if I want to go fast, I got go fast kind of handled. It's cool to have that nostalgic feel, and that's really where the Camaro comes into play. Plus, with all that torque down low, this car cruises down the highway like you would not believe. So, it just eats up miles. Now, that being said, be on the lookout because very soon the Camaro is going to be, I'm going to be doing videos on the Camaro. I've got to get the dash, the actual display. I got to get that redone so I can have gauges again. There's going to be some steering linkage that's going to get adjusted and worked on. So there's a lot of cool things coming with the 3rd gen. Let's see. Scavenger saying my Avenger was technically a wide body, just never realized it until the Challenger Chargers came out, right? Scat Pack's asking, is MS-109 safe to run in a 392 without oil injection upgrade? Oil injection? Yeah, you don't ever want to inject any oil anywhere. The only injected oil you have anywhere would be your squirters. But yeah, you can run MS-109. That's not a problem. Let's see. But why would you want to? I guess I wouldn't run MS-109. I would run GT260. I would not run GT260 Plus. You're not going to be able to take advantage. I don't think it's going to hurt anything, but let me just say this. You cannot take advantage of that level of octane with the car. What you can use, though, is GT260. It's 100 octane. It's basically like premium. So it's a higher end premium than like 93 octane. Think of it that way. It's a very familiar fuel to your car. It's 10% ethanol, with its base gasoline being roughly 92 octane as opposed to the lower grade that you get at the pump. So don't run MS-109. I just don't think you're going to get anything out of it, honestly. George is saying, you say the Hellcat is a measure of fast today. Myself and all my friends all grew up comparing everything to a Mustang GT. If you could beat a GT Mustang, you had a fast car. Well, and how things have changed, right? Back in the day, yeah, it 100% was the Mustang. It was the 5.0. It was before the 5.0, it was the 5.0. Everybody started out with the Fox Mustang being kind of the yardstick for performance. Well, now, fast forward to, 2015 when the game got changed. And I get it. There's other fast cars out there. Super Snake comes into play here. But the reality is that when you're talking about mass-produced hot rods, in 2015, the Hellcat just changed the rules of the game. And quite honestly, still to this day, 7 model years into this thing, you're still, yes, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. So you're still comparing cars to the Hellcat, which by the warp speed that things change nowadays, you should be comparing it to the Redeye. But they're not, and they're comparing it to the Hellcat because people know the name. They know Hellcat, and I mean, that is the yardstick that modern drag strip performance is all about. Shiv Nation saying E85 chat, like. We can do that. I can bore you to tears regaling you with all kinds of E85 factoids. Scavenger 1320 is saying, oh yeah, he's hanging out with George. Let's see. Wise Oracle 426 question. Better to buy a stroker kit and swap things over or buy a pre-built 426 based block? Buy the pre-built 426 based block. A lot of times you can get a warranty along with that, which is 2 thumbs up. The main thing is, depends on how buddied up you are with your machine shop. If you've got a great relationship with a machine shop, yeah, you can absolutely have, just do a 10 over with your block, do the drop-ins with the crank and the rods, and I mean, you're going to be fine. But I don't know. I'd much rather have somebody send me the block and go from there. The only downside to that is you may or may not have something, I don't know. I've had some weird issues come up with blocks anyway, showing up rusty and all this other crap. So if you can get one with a warranty, get the block. If not, then, just become best friends with somebody that has a machine shop and have them do the assembly for you. Scammer saying, I used to beat up on GTs in my Ram, but Camaros gave me a run for my money. That was early to mid 90s. Yep. And then George R saying, yes, we built our Nova and Pontiac Tempest with one goal to beat GT Mustang. I know it. Isn't that funny? Well, guys, we are coming up on 2 hours. I have got to get on out of here. Want to thank each and every one of you guys for hanging out. Couldn't do this without you. Love each and every one of you. If you're going to send it, don't bend it. Keep your sunny side up. Keep wearing your mask, if not for yourself, then for others. And with that, that is a wrap. Y'all have a safe week, and we will catch y'all this weekend. Hopefully get you guys some track footage as well. Cool things are coming. Good DA, so fingers crossed. Anyway, guys, y'all have a safe and a great week, and I will catch up with you later. Adios.